Let's talk to Will Geddes, security expert, because while Nigel Farage himself made light later on last night of the milkshake that was thrown on him when he was out campaigning in Clacton, it does raise once again the spectre of attacks on MPs and whether MPs can feel safe going out meeting the public. Will, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
And a very good morning to you, Michael.
Now, obviously, yeah, great to have you on Morning Glory. The thing about this attack is that, poor old Nigel Farage has been milkshaked before when he was campaigning many, many years ago. And it's must be a very unpleasant thing to have to happen to him. He's got security, though. He won't be happy that they somehow didn't spot this coming.
No, I wouldn't be happy either, Michael. I've watched the video a few times to see exactly what happened, how it happened. And obviously, from a professional perspective, looking at how his security team were obviously positioned, how they were moving him through the crowd. And having done this for many people in the public eye historically, I know how it can easily go wrong if you're not in the right position to look after your principal and prevent this kind of attack. And we've seen this attack, as you rightly say, before.
I mean, I guess the problem for these politicians is that if you're moving a celebrity, say, from a backstage door of an event to a car, you're not having to worry about him wanting to stop and shake hands with people necessarily. But in this situation, you've got Nigel Farage, a very popular figure, walking around a largely sort of benevolent crowd of people who want to say hello to him and maybe shake his hand. So that must be a tougher crowd to police, right?
Well, yeah, to a certain extent, Michael. I mean, we call it journey management in our world, and it's in how you move the principal when you debus or embus the client, and that's obviously taking them out of a car into a venue or from a venue into the car, and looking at the distance, which obviously is going to be covered between, how that environment is protected, whether there are marshals, whether there's police, whether there's a free space where people can come up very, very close. And having met Nigel a few times, he's a very friendly, very nice guy, but he's also very pragmatic. He's very sensible about listening to his security, what the security will advise him to do, and how he needs to interact. And evidently, as you rightly say, Mike, he wants to interact with his potential voters. He wants to talk to the general public. He wants to be approachable. And it's striking that fine line, Mike, between being approachable, but also not exposing yourself to potential risk. And in this particular instance, I think this could have been avoided.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we look as though we know the police have made an arrest and everybody seems to know that the woman who threw the milkshake is a Labour-supporting person who likes Jeremy Corbyn and has an OnlyFans account. So the story takes a rather interesting twist there. But, I mean, how would you, if you were running the security in that situation, ensure that people couldn't get that close? I mean, was it a case of just not spotting her? She seemed to move in quite quickly and disappear quite quickly.
Well, yeah, it's a bit of there's two answers to that, Mike. The first is she was quite easily spotted. I've looked at, again, the video that was taken by people who were there from a variety of different perspectives and different angles. There was a clear space between, obviously, her and Nigel and getting close enough to, obviously, douse him with milkshake. Right. Security, in terms of their positioning, one of the things that you do, and I can spot 3 security officers that were with him, close protection officers. And again, it's a question of shielding as well. So right. You're judging as you're moving through the crowd is you're looking also at street furniture. It's things like railings, things like planters, steps, all sorts of things which potentially can slow you down. Also you can use as a barricade. Now, in this instance, certainly I could see this woman cover a fairly short distance of space, but open space, to obviously throw the milkshake at Nigel. So again, there was a railing between them. So it was, again, positioning out a little bit. So it's not so easy. And again, the close protection officer shielding the principal. Right. Still approachable, but he's more likely to get covered. And Michael, there have been more than one time or a few times that I've actually been doused by drinks and goodness knows what.
Well, exactly right, because presumably you're the security guy. You should be out front protecting that sort of attack, for that line of attack, if you like.
Absolutely, that's our job, whether it be bullet catching, which ideally is not the case, or milkshake catching for that. So.
But that is the problem, isn't it? Because obviously people have, the lefties have all said, oh, yeah, isn't it great? People were actually saying proud of Clacton sometimes on social media. Ludicrous. And in fact, there were some, what I would call supposedly responsible radio presenters actually backing it and saying how interesting it was. But the point about it is that this could have been more serious. We've seen attacks on MPs which have ended up with deadly, horrible consequences. And we've got a big election coming up. We've got 4 weeks of campaigning. campaigning. There will be a lot of people out there. So, I mean, is there going to have to be some kind of tightening up of security all round today?
Absolutely. I mean, without question. I mean, we only have to look at the most recent event, Mike, which was last week in Germany, where the anti-Islam group were protesting. They were together, and a young Afghani immigrant attacked them with a knife and killed a couple of people there.
Yeah.
You know,
including
risk
a police officer.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Nigel is a very controversial figure. He is very sort of anti-illegal immigration. He's about getting people out of the country if they've come here illegally.
Yeah.
He's got some
I personally, there are people who call him controversial, other people who call him somebody who just represents the views of a very large group of people in this country.
No, and I don't disagree with you, Mike, but I think those are the kind of inflammatory comments or perceived inflammatory comments, which is going to raise the game in terms of the threat spectrum. You know, there are a lot of individuals, and I mean, we're lucky that it was only a milkshake in this instance. It could have been acid. It could have been a number of other slightly, more toxic or dangerous substances that were thrown at Nigel. So, we have to look at, we're in a democratic country here, where politicians, individuals that are canvassing, have to be afforded some level of protection to push through with our free speech that we fought so hard to achieve.
Yeah, you would like to think so, particularly this week of D-Day commemorations. Will, very good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Will Geddes, a security expert on what could have been a much worse attack had it been done by somebody with more malevolent intent, or had it been done with somebody who really wanted to harm Nigel Farage.